This is the Leading Second podcast, where we're on a mission to equip local churches everywhere to raise up uncommon leaders. The Leading Second podcast releases every Thursday morning, so hit follow and share this episode with your team. Now, let's jump into another episode for all of us who lead from the middle. This is the year of the leader. This is the Leading Second podcast.
Well, welcome back to the Leading Second podcast. My name is Brandon Stewart, and it's our honor to have you here today and part of this conversation. Of course, we created this space for all of us who lead from the middle. I kind of see this as our space, to have the conversations we need to be having. So I pray this is helping you and adding something into your life. If this conversation or any episode is helping you, consider sharing them with your team. We've created some episode guides available at leadingsecond.com/podcast to help serve you with that. Just pray that this is blessing you and your team and your leadership journey. And hey, this is our final episode before we're taking a brief break in June, but we're back in July. I'm so excited with a 4-part series for the podcast, hitting some current cultural hot topic issues and how we need to be thinking about them right now. You're not going to want to miss our special summer series of episodes in July. Our mission here at Leading Second is to equip local churches to raise up uncommon church builders. This was never about building a ministry or a platform to us. This was about equipping churches and raising up leaders for our churches. We're calling it the year of the leader, in fact, at Leading Second. And it's been an exciting season at Leading Second. The past few months, we have released so many new things to serve you and to serve your team. I'm just going to recap them here for a minute. Of course, everything is available on our website at leadingsecond.com. But first of all, we have Leading Second Plus that has joined the lineup over the last few months. So excited about our online video resource platform with online courses, fresh monthly content for you. And alongside that, a program we called Leading Second Pro. This is a group subscription for every member of your team, or a license to use the content with your team, a way that we've established to make it accessible for your whole staff. And this comes with coaching for you of how to establish leadership development in your church. So we're excited about both of those. We've also opened up applications for our next round of coaching groups. These coaching cohorts are designed to help you master the art of second chair leadership in a really unique, immersive coaching group experience. It includes some on-site coaching through a coaching summit. It's such a great tool for any executive pastor or campus pastor. I encourage you to check that out. And also, we've launched over the last few months Leading Second Build. This is our avenue of organizational coaching for lead pastors and church lead teams, just to help you identify where's your church at right now, and how do we move forward? What's the team look like that you need right now in this season? Looking at your church from an organizational lens. All of those things have joined our lineup. And, the bottom line is Leading Second is here to serve you and to serve your church. If there's any way we can be walking with you or coming alongside you, our hope is to do that. Please be reaching out to us, letting us know how we can serve your church. But it's just an honor that we get to interact with and be a part of churches in any of these capacities. I also want to say a huge thank you to this year's podcast partner, Tithely. They have come alongside us this year to make this season's episodes possible. And I'm so impressed with Tithely as I've gotten to know them, their giving platform, as well as their reporting platform. Having a dashboard and seeing what you need to see is so important, when you're driving a car, and Tithely is kind of that dashboard for your church's giving. So much of church giving today is automated and done online, and I'm confident that the use of Tithely's tools, their platform, can help you increase your church's giving capacity as well as steward what God has given you. So for more information, head to Tithely's site. And again, we want to say a big thank you to them for partnering with us on the podcast this year. Okay, so for today's episode, we are so excited to bring you a conversation with two leaders I highly respect. Pastor Todd Mullins is with us today. He and his wife, Julie, of course, are the lead pastors of Christ Fellowship Church, which is an expansive multi-site church in South Florida. I had the opportunity to visit a few years back and be a part of a leadership event. They're such a special church with a awesome culture, integrous leadership. I was just so impressed, and I love any chance I get to talk with them. And today, as a special treat, we're also joined by Dave Simiele. He's been with us before. He's the campus pastor at the broadcast location of the church, and we're going to talk to Dave and Pastor Todd together. We're going to have a conversation we love to have. We call it I Am With You. Of course, out of 1 Samuel 14, Jonathan's armor bearer to Jonathan. And you're going to get to hear from a first chair and a second chair who've served together for many years. You're going to hear from some of the dynamics that they deal with. So without further ado, here is my conversation. I Am With You with Pastor Todd Mullins and Dave Simiele. Well, this is a treat for me. I'm so excited, honored to be talking with Pastor Todd Mullins and Dave Simiele from Christ Fellowship Church in Florida. Say hello.
Hey guys, we're glad to be with you. Glad to be with you, Brandon. It's just great to be talking with pastors and sharing a little bit of what we're going through ourselves.
That's right. Hey, leading second, always good to be on the podcast. As a consumer and hearer of it, I feel privileged today to be a part of the community. And hopefully today we share just a little something that could be helpful.
Absolutely. I just have to say, both of you, I love and highly respect you all and your team, Pastor Todd and Julie. You know, y'all are just building something so special. I was so impressed at your culture and what I was able to see a few years back. And just thank you all for the spirit in which you build and the culture with which you build. It's remarkable. It's healthy. I just loved it, and I'm excited to be talking with you today. And Pastor Todd, I just wanted to first maybe get our community oriented with you. How long have you been pastoring in the lead pastor seat, and kind of what was your story coming into that space?
Yeah, I was going to be a doctor, and right before I headed off to college, felt the call of God to go into ministry, so stepped away from my plans and said, okay, God, we'll figure out what this is. And finished college, came home and started working with the church that my parents started 39 years ago. And so it was only a couple years old when I jumped in, small, 50 people, 60 people. So I was the first youth guy, worship guy, janitor, secretary, chief car washer, whatever needed to be done, right? For a long time. And just grew with the church as it grew, and grew up into that executive pastor, kind of that second seat chair for many years. In fact, I spent decades in that seat before I ever stepped into the role of senior pastor. And Julie and I stepped into the role together. It's been about 12 years ago now. So we've been in this seat. But I think because I spent so much time, I spent more time in the second chair than in the first chair, it's given me, I think, a greater maybe passion for those in the second chair and understanding and just being a part of that journey. So
sure. I'm going to be really honest with you. I didn't realize you had that much time in the second chair. That's brilliant. We should probably just be unpacking that. I love that. But what do you love most about pastoring now in the lead pastor seat?
That's a great question. I think I love the fact that I get some of the ideas and passions and desires of the way I would maybe want to see something evolve, or something that a burden that God's put on my heart. That 12 years ago, that was my opportunity to step in and be a part of maybe giving expression and voice to that. I remember about 6 months before Dad passed the baton to Julie and I, he looked at me and said, "So what's your vision for the church?" And I remember looking at him with just these big deer in headlight. I have no idea, because that hasn't been my job. My job was to help execute and fulfill the vision God gave to you. And so he said, well, you got 6 months to like go fast and pray and hear from God. And so it was a journey of like really going, okay, God, what are those things that you've put on the inside of me that now you're giving birth to? It's going to have expression. Before then, I was able to, help shape things and add to the vision, but it wasn't mine to originate in. And so I think being able to become and step into being a visionary leader has been probably the thing I've enjoyed the most.
That's great. And that is exactly the territory we're going to get to in a minute. We so badly today want to hear from you as a pastor in that seat, because you're talking to a community of second chair leaders. I think we just often wonder, what is our pastor thinking? We don't often maybe hear that, and what's on the mind of a lead pastor. Inquiring minds want to know, So excited to have that conversation today. Dave, tell us your story really fast, just on how you arrived into the seat that you serve in today.
Yeah. It's crazy to think I've been at Christ Fellowship now for 14 years. Came on team as a student pastor at one of our video venue locations, was there for about 2.5 years, and then helped open the doors of a campus, and spent 4 years doing that. And then 7 years ago now, almost 8 years ago now, had the opportunity to come here to our broadcast location and serve really, really closely with Pastor Todd, and now too helping represent some of our other campus pastors and what they're doing. And so 14 years here at Christ Fellowship, 8 years before that in full-time ministry. And it's been an awesome run.
I remember when I saw Dave, like we talked over the phone during the interview process. And of course, when he came in, got on team, but he went off to another campus. And I remember showing up at that campus, and I don't think, Dave, you knew I was there. And I was watching the way you were taking care of people and taking care of the environment. And you were seeing things that I would see and want to fix, and you were fixing them. And I'm like, I think I like that guy, like a lot.
I'm so glad. Yeah.
Well, and Dave, you have the unique perspective of being at the broadcast location. Of course, you all have several locations, but I mean, you're at the one pastor's at, so that dynamic's probably not gone away, different than maybe some of the other campus pastors and whatnot.
And I'm still trying to see what pastor sees. Even this weekend, we spent time together, and there were just a couple things. He was like, "Hey, did you feel that? Did you hear that? Did you see that?" And so, just trying to always learn. And I think that's probably one of my greatest privileges of being at broadcast is often we are shoulder to shoulder, and then I'm just watching, looking, learning, and really too just trying to get ahead of him, which is incredibly hard to do, to get ahead of the Mullins family, but doing my best to serve where I can.
It's a valiant task, and goal. Okay, Pastor Todd, just the big question right out of the gate. As a lead pastor, I would just love to hear you talk on what are some of the tensions and weights that you carry. We just talked about what you love, but no doubt your seat, as I've heard it described, I've never, been in a lead pastor's seat, but as I've heard it described, it has a different weight to it. Could you just give some language around what that's been like for you?
Absolutely. I think when you ask that question, my mind goes back to when I first felt that weight. Because I had been with my dad serving side by side for decades, like building. The church went from 50 people to 150 to 500 to 5,000 to 15, started growing, right? And so I was growing with it, and I felt like I was in there right there with my dad building it. And I mean, he was the senior pastor. I wasn't, but I was all in, man. I was carrying it with him. But I remember the first week after the baton passed, I went to my dad, and I actually apologized. I said, "Dad, I owe you a huge apology because I had no idea what you carried as the senior, because even we co-pastored for 18 months before we transitioned. And then that co-pastor role was like, okay, we're 50-50 in the responsibilities, but he was still my dad, and he was still the senior, he's my pastor. And so he was probably still shouldering it. But the moment he stepped back, and I stepped into it, I remember feeling this spiritual weight and responsibility. It was a burden, but not in a bad way burden. It was just this thing that I felt on my shoulders. It changed. I noticed that the words that when I talked to some of the guys on the team the same way I talked to them a month ago, and I realized my words landed a little heavier on them. And Just even in the joking and fun stuff I just had to go, wait, my words are landing heavier, and I'm feeling weight of it a little bit more. And so I think when I think about it now, I think about in the Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians, he talks about, the hardships he's endured. He lists prisons and beatings and shipwrecks and this long list. And then at the very end of that part, he says, and besides of all those things, there's the daily pressure, or it's even in the Greek meaning like almost this inescapable pressure and concern for the churches that he feels. And it's even in like who's weak and who might stumble. And I realize that's really the voice of it. It's like there's this burden of maybe the whole that is not something you try to escape. It's from God, that you're supposed to carry it for the staff, for the community, for the people. Because we always tell our team that we're not just pastoring a church, we're pastoring a community, we're pastoring cities and regions. And there's a spiritual kind of weight that comes with that. And I know we're supposed to cast all our cares on Jesus and all that. But Paul was actually telling us right there that he actually carried this burden that he couldn't get away from. And so I think the number one thing is just that feeling of responsibility. And even as the church ministry grows, the greater the influence in a community, I think there's greater vulnerabilities that the ministries need to be prayed over and think about and be concerned with. So it's probably the number one big overarching.
What would you say to the leader listening? They're well-intentioned in how they're serving, but they're just unaware of the fact that there's a different weight. They haven't been in that seat. They may never. Just like, what would you say right to that leader?
Well, first of all, I don't expect anybody else to know what that is, because I didn't know it, and I was closer to my dad than anybody could have been. And besides my mom, I think my mom knew. Julie knows. Like, there's a shared responsibility with spouses. So I don't put that on anybody and make them go, you have no idea what it's like. I mean, they're not supposed to have any idea what it's like. So first of all, I'd say, don't feel bad that you don't know. Don't feel bad that you're unaware, that you're not supposed to. That's not yours to carry. And so there's no guilt in that or that. But I would also say there's you don't know what you don't know. So there's things as maybe that you don't know about what the leader's carrying, or the burden they're under, or just even the burden that, every Sunday they got to come up with a fresh anointed word that's from the heart of God, and it's funny and it's engaging and it's going to reach the people that are lost in the room and the people that have been saved for 70 years, all at the same time. That's a pressure, right? Or that every time you walk into a room, I don't just get to go to staff meeting. I've got to help steward it and carry it and teach it and give a word, and most of the time. So there's that. I think just you don't know everything you don't know. So I would just say, put that filter on that there's some things you don't know and that you don't have to know, but there's things that your leader's carrying.
It's like your part-time public speaker, part-time comedian, part-time architect, part-time, human resources expert, just all of the hats that I think we don't see. Dave, let me come over to you. Just I always get the sense from you, you're all in, and you got that Jonathan's armor bearer spirit. We talk about it a lot, Pastor, go do all that's in your heart. Why do you go all in? Why? Yeah. Where's that heart coming from in you?
Well, I think you just heard a little bit of that. That heart for me is because of the heart that Pastor has. I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what he's carrying. But I see somebody who's all in. I mean, Pastor Todd will preach 7 Easter services and will be the last one at the altar. He will stay. He will be all in. Pastor Julie, we've got a women's conference coming up this weekend. She'll have guests from all over the nation, plus all the ladies of our house and all of that. And she'll be one of the last ones on the dance floor at the after party. Pastors Todd and Julie are all in. So it's easy to be all in when your first chair leader is all in. And when your first chair leader has the heart that they have, I mean, where else would you want to be all in? But right here. And so I think that's one of the things that drives me. And just to piggyback on what Pastor said, I don't know what he carries. I don't know the weight of that. As a second chair leader, I'll never know. But what I do know is that I can find out some way to help ease the burden and lift the load where I can. And without getting too preachy, and I want to lift his arms as Moses' arms were lifted, and he had victory. I want to lift Todd's arms. I want to lift the burden. I want to help him win where he can, and keep things from his plate where I can, and help shoulder that burden, because I don't know all the other burdens that he's carrying.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Hey, you can preach to us. We're okay. We're okay.
Yeah, Dave, you do that so well. You really do. You do that really. You always are asking, what can I do? Is there something else you're seeing? Is there something else that would be better for the team to jump in and help with? Or so you do, brother. You lift my arms up.
Awesome.
Yeah. And, making that a bit more practical, Pastor Todd, I'm sure you've worked with several, over the years in different capacities right around you. If you could think about it, what are some things that the leaders around you in your airspace have done that have helped carry weight, just like practical things?
Yeah. I think the first thing there is just always asking, what do you need? What can I do? And most of the time I'm going to you're doing it, right? But every once in a while, there's something that I'm looking for maybe the right time to bring up, or our team, we try to have a real good culture of giving feedback. So a lot of times like, hey, if you saw anything that we could do better, if you saw anything when you popped into the campus that you would want to speak into, please tell me. So I think making it easy for your leader to give you feedback and coaching, open up opportunities. I do that with the people in my life. Like I'll get with my dad and I'm like, we'll be away on a trip and I'll say, okay, what's that thing that you're waiting for the right time to talk to me about?
Wow.
You're waiting for the right thing. How about now's the right time? Doors wide open. What do you need to say to me? As he's my pastor. So as my pastor, what do you need to speak into my life? And I think anytime we just make it easy for people to do that, it builds strength, it builds trust. It allows a leader to easily, bring up something without worrying about stepping on eggshells.
Brilliant. Dave, I guess opposite question to you. What's your lens on that question? What do you do? What do you look to do to try to support Pastor Todd and Julie?
Yeah. And I think to be so close to your senior pastor, your first chair leader, whoever it is, but not know what's most important to them is such a hindrance. And so you've got to figure out what's most important to them. And some of them might not just come out and say, hey, this is most important to me right now. But if I know what's most important to Pastors Todd and Julie, I make that most important to me. And as a second chair leader, what's most important to me cannot be what's not most important to them. So I'm always trying to figure that out, trying to stay in that season. We're in a season as a church right now that we call Heart for the House. And I know that is what is most important to Pastor Todd right now. So it's up to me to cascade that, to carry that, to protect and help give voice to it. And in 3 months, in 3 weeks, he's going to have something else that's most important to him in that time. But for now, for right there, man, I want to help by knowing what's most important to him. And for me, it's a little clearer with our leaders. I'm grateful for that. I know that might not be the case for every listener today. So you've just got to listen intently to those Sunday messages and those meetings, and you're going to pick up, okay, this is important to them. And then now you start to carry it. You start to cascade that communication. It's going to be helpful.
So we were talking about, what Pastor Todd might carry that we're unaware of. I'll bet there's some opposite things though. I bet there's things that you do that he has no idea you do. Like, what are you filtering? What are you handling so that it doesn't get to the first seat unnecessarily? In other words, the things that don't need to be there.
Yeah. So we actually say this thing around here, and I might have said it on an old podcast or whatever, is that we filter the fuss and we monitor the moan. I think it's up to me to make sure that I'm filtering the frustrations, that are happening. And here's the deal. Here's the idea with that too is because somebody comes up to you in a lobby after a weekend service, or a teammate comes to you after a staff meeting and they say one thing that might have hit them wrong or whatever, that's not a trend. that's one person. That's one person. You don't have to lead up with like, hey, I was talking to, some people are really concerned. No, that was one person. And so I try to filter out the trivial things so those don't get to pastor. I report up on the trends. And then I think, the thing that pastor, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but if I'm caring for people, if we're pastoring people, if we're building teams and we're developing leaders, I think I'm keeping a lot of things off of his plate, out of his office, and some things trickle in to his office from time to time. And what I love about Pastor is that he always fills that gap with trust. If something comes to him, a dropped ball from something that happened, he's going to fill that gap with trust, and then he's going to just go, "Hey, help me understand. How did we get here? How did this happen? And we're gonna make it right." Those things get to his office, but we try and work really hard to make sure that those things aren't there, so that Pastors Todd and Julie, especially in a multi-site church context, that they can think about the whole and not be caught up with the one at any given campus.
So
That's great.
Sitting on that for a minute, because we hear things in the second chair. We do hear the moan, right? We do hear the fuss. And, it could be easy sometimes to think, well, man, they got a point, or they, we live in that tension of hearing those things, but then we're the recipients of vision. How do you handle, just that tension in the middle?
Yeah. So for me, on some of those things, I have to ask myself a series of questions when something like that comes in. Even if and one of those questions is this my preference? Is this their preference, or is this a principle?
There you go.
Is this preference or principle? If this is a principle issue, I'm going to lead up with that. But I also, instead of going directly to Pastor Todd in our organization, I may go to our executive director of multi-site and go, "Hey, this is kind of feeling this. What do you think?" And oftentimes, if I'm bringing it to him, he's quickly to go, "Hey, let's process that with Pastor." So I'm asking some questions, kind of filtering that. And then the other question I ask, if it was about me or concerning me, would I want to know? And if it would be something that I would want to know, if it took place at on my team or at my campus or whatever it might be, and I would want to know, I wouldn't want someone to keep that from me. I'm going to communicate. I'm going to lead up with that. And then the other thing, and this isn't necessarily a question, but with that, monitoring the moan, filtering the fuss, if I'm going to lead up with something, I'm usually going to say, "And this is what we're doing about it." So I'm not just going to go, "Hey, here's what I heard. This was the problem. Check-ins were down across all campuses." And hey, check-ins were down across campus locations. Power went out. We didn't have battery backups. I'm working with IT. We're going to have battery backups. Just want to let you know it happened, but we're solving the problem.
Yeah, I think when Dave does that, it builds trust that he's not keeping something from me because he doesn't want me to know, but also he's solved the problem, or they're in the process of they've identified the problem enough to work out a couple of solutions. Then that's great. I know about it and I'm ready to move on. The other thing I would say, Brandon, is that when the team does not use superlatives when they're bringing problems. Everybody, always, they never. I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm believing you right now because I'm not sure it's everybody. So I think when they let me know, we had 4 people that were upset about this, and we just think you need to know. It's only 4 out of 4,000, so we're not too worried. But I think just putting it always in perspective helps us know, is it really something that needs to be dramatized? And
it's good.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's always 3 people. So,
Yeah.
That's such a good point.
Hey, Brandon, one other thing in that question, when you asked, what is it that some people have done over the years that's helped you? I would just say, man, for all the second chairs out there, just remember that your senior leader is a person too. They might be your pastor, obviously, or your spiritual leader, or even your boss, but they're people. And so I think they just remembering that they have needs for friendship, relationship, and inclusion. And I mean, our team has done a great job just keeping the friendship. Like we need friendships. Yeah, we got the spiritual responsibility, we got lead and all that, but we also just want to hang and play cards and eat ice cream and cook out and go shoot something or watch something. Or we want to do all those things. And I think sometimes we went through a season where some of the people closest on our team I think they were thinking, man, Todd and Julie are so busy right now. Their schedule's crazy. We don't want to ask them out to dinner or ask them over to go see a movie or anything, because that will just add to their calendar. So their attempt to kind of honor us actually excluded us from the thing we needed, relationship and life. And so I remember sitting down with our team, the team that's like right around us, and just letting them know, hey, we miss being together. And so I don't want to always be the one asking you. I think they were always waiting for me to ask and me to initiate. Hey, you want to go to dinner? Hey, you want to come over? And because they knew we were busy, but it also made it feel like I was always the one wanting to initiate, so they must not want to get with me. And they were like, no, you're busy. So I think just understanding that they're people that want relationship, and we do life with the people closest to us. I mean, Dave and Rhonda, they're over at our house. We'd like to be at least once a week if we can make that happen, just to hang out and eat ice cream, play cards, do something. Our guys closest to us, we vacation with them, we hang out, we enjoy being together, and that brings life. So that's really been one thing that's helped kind of lift the burden of leadership.
And I would just add one thing to that. You get that time with your first chair leader. It doesn't always have to be work. And it's hard to go into those, we're going to play cards, we're going to eat ice cream, we're going to hang out. And hey, can I talk to you about one thing about the weekend? Or can we, we really try. We try to keep it genuinely fun. And usually Pastors Todd and Julie are losing at the card game, so they're frustrated anyway.
Not true. Lately, we have lost a few times, but normally.
So I think what you're saying is read the room. read the room, read the moment. As you're talking, Pastor Todd, I'm interested on something. We created Leading Second to bring dignity and value to the second chair and to champion it. That it's not, for many of us, it's not this like placeholder stepping stone on the way to something else. Many of us, this actually is our assignment, either right now or someone like myself, I would say indefinitely. I imagine myself going the distance and doing it by way of holding up my pastor's arms. So talk to us about how you decided in your heart that first chair leadership, it was what you felt God was asking of you versus second chair, because you spent that time in the second chair. And, just what did that decision, how did you decipher God's calling on you for that? Because I feel like in the same way, some of us in the second chair have to decipher it and would add up, I'm called to be in the second seat.
Right. Great question. I did not necessarily feel called to the first chair. So when I felt called to ministry, it was to build the church of Jesus Christ, whatever that was, whatever that looked like. And again, it was many years hidden on the backside of a mountain with 70, 80, 90 people. It was small. But even as the church grew, I think there was an assumption at some point, oh, you're Tom's son, so you'll probably step into leading. And I was leading already. We had, a large staff, and I was leading the staff in that executive pastor role. But when the time actually came when we started talking about it to pray about, Julie and I did not necessarily aspire to it or even necessarily want it. It was, in fact, I remember us praying about Dad. Dad was like, hey, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. And I'm like, well, let me pray about it, because I don't know if I want to. And we even prayed, Lord, if there's someone else that needs to, when Dad transitions, that needs to be the senior pastor, and we just need to stay in this role and stay as a second serving the vision, we will do that because we're committed to the church and your kingdom. So it wasn't until we really spent that time fasting and praying that we felt, no, we were to step into this role of senior pastor. And then we began the process of that transition. But I think I loved being in the second chair. I even think back to the privilege of being the armor bearer for my dad. It was probably the greatest privilege I've ever had in my life, that even is beyond being the senior pastor now. And so it's a sacred trust and a sacred calling that I would say is extremely noble and worthwhile, and would have stayed there indefinitely.
And part of my passion for this came out of when we started traveling and helping churches 11 years ago. The very first trip, I was freaked out, didn't know what I was doing. God had just opened a door. but I felt God say to me as I was praying for this pastor we were going to go serve. I felt God say, "Give pastors an army." In other words, kind of this idea of what could a pastor do if they knew their team was in lockstep behind them, and I feel like that's been forever the mandate on this space. What would you say to a pastor about the value of the second chair? And by second chair, we're talking anyone that just raises their hand and says, I'm in for this vision. I want to champion it. What would you say to another lead pastor about the value of this place? Because we feel like sometimes it's a little more unseen and under noticed for its strength.
Having spent, nearly 2 decades in that second chair seat, I would want every pastor to understand the value of that person and their vision and their heart and their gifting. That in fact, I can't do what I'm called to do without the people in the second chair doing what they're called to do. Without them helping to execute on and lead through the team and the staff and the volunteer, my effectiveness is not going to go. It's not going to be very far. It's not going to take me very far. Not going to move the church forward. It's actually all syncing together. It's all parts of the body functioning. And so the value, the gift that is when you find, and we've got a bunch of men and women in the second chair at our church that are all in, just like Dave and Rhonda, and their hearts are for the mission of the church. Their hearts are for Julie and me. Their hearts are for what God's called us to. And they express that not just through their words, but through their prayers. And you can just see it in the way when they lean into an assignment or they lean into a new season of vision or even work through a difficult challenge. Man, the body is strong because of them. And without them, the body could not function the way we're supposed to. So I would tell, all the other senior pastors, anything you do to pour into the second chairs and let them know, those people on your team, they're in those roles, they are mission critical, not just to get your vision accomplished, but just to be who the church is called to be.
Let me kind of start landing the plane with this subject, and that would be the subject of building trust. I feel like trust is the great currency in this relationship. And of course, trust is, built over a long time, and it's lost in moments. So I guess either one of you can take a shot at this. Maybe we'll start with you, Pastor Todd. Just what builds trust with you? And Dave, what do you do to try to make sure that trust currency stays high, with your pastor? I'd just love to hear you guys talk about trust for a minute.
Okay. This is really a great, easy topic for Dave and I to talk about because I believe there's a lot of mutual trust that flows between the two of us and on our team. And you're right, trust is the foundation for a healthy relationship, any relationship. And when it comes to a working relationship, especially, and I think everybody wants to work in an empowered culture, right, where where trust is there, and everybody can function in their gifting. And most people think that whether or not there's a culture of trust or empowerment is all really based on the leader. Does the leader trust me? Will the leader trust his team? But I try to tell our team, empowerment goes both ways. You are just as responsible for creating a culture of empowerment as I am, or the leader over your department is. We all have to work together on this. And so when someone does their job and they do it really well, that creates a culture of empowerment. When a team player does what's expected of them and then maybe a little bit more, what does that do? That builds trust. That leader trusts them, and they usually get a little bit more. I think about Joseph in the Old Testament. He wasn't put in charge of Potiphar's house the day he showed up at Potiphar's house, right? He probably got the lowest, pitiful, stinky, cleaning the outhouse kind of job, right? That's what the lowest, newest servant in the house would have gotten. But there had to have been a day when Potiphar went to that outhouse and he was like, wow, this place is cleaner than it's ever been. And it actually doesn't smell so bad. Who did this? And it was Joe. And all of a sudden, Joe's given a little bit more to work with, to the point that it says that Potiphar left Joseph in charge of everything that he had. And with Joseph, he didn't even think about anything except what he was going to eat. And so that didn't just happen. Joe had to make that happen. So that amount of trust actually came because Joseph was committed to excellence and going above and beyond. And so when I see team players do that, and give their best and lean in and own things, and even own stuff that isn't their mess. Like
There you go.
in ministry's messy, and there's a lot of things that don't fit into nice boxes. And when people go, I'll take it, I got it, let me work on that, not a big deal, man, that just builds trust.
Own something that isn't your mess. Dave, you ever done that? Own something that isn't your mess.
Absolutely. No one's allowed to say around here, that's not my job.
Yeah,
right?
there you go.
It's all of our jobs. We do it. I think one of the things about trust that I love between Pastor Todd and I is he is trustworthy. And because he's trustworthy, he's trusting as well. And I know that my pastor, man, I know that at the end of the day, he loves me and he loves Rhonda and he loves our soul. He loves who we are as people more than what we can do for him in our church. But I also, know that he does trust us. And I think that's one of the greatest things that any first chair leader can tell someone in the second, third, fourth, fifth chairs, I trust you. Yes, you can give your team time off. You can give your team maybe a bonus and a paycheck. And for some teams, maybe you need to do that this week. But I think greater than time off and a bonus is when your leader says, I trust you. Because that trust, again, you've already said it, Brandon, is the currency of the relationship. And so I think it's so powerful to be able to have that. And I need to quote a president, Ronald Reagan, trust but verify. It's actually one of the things we talk about in our card games a lot. I'm trusting, but I got to verify. Did you get your phase? Did you get it? But I think that builds trust too. It's just not to say, hey, I trust you, but I'm going to circle back around. And this is one of Pastor Todd and Julie. They are their minds. They're so gifted. But Pastor will contact me, 6 months from a situation and go, hey, remember when we talked about John Smith? What happened to him and where's he at? And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was 6 months ago. But he's trusted me to care for John. And so, man, I better know what's going on with John. How am I following up with that? And so he's trusting, but he's also verifying and holding accountable. And I think that all adds to the trustworthiness of that second chair leader.
Yeah, that's well said. Well said. I have a last question for each of you. And my theory on podcasts is if someone's still listening, we're, half an hour in, whatever it is, if someone's still listening, they needed this conversation.
A long drive, wherever they're going.
The workout's done and they're still listening, at this point, they needed this. So I think of that person a lot. And Pastor Todd, what would you say right now to the leader that's a little frustrated with their pastor? And would you just be able to speak in their heart for a minute? If they're just sitting in that place, it's not where they want to be, but they're there. What would you say to that?
I would just encourage you not to confuse your assignment with your calling. Your calling has been to build the church. Your calling has been to be faithful to Jesus and let him make the bride beautiful for the return of Christ. That's your calling. You're called to this. Your assignment right now may not feel so great. And I've been in a lot of those places where my assignment wasn't great. I felt like I had more in me. I remember when we had, 8 kids in my youth group, and I'm like, I could do more than 8. I've got more than but don't confuse your assignment where you're at right now with the calling you've got. Be faithful in your assignment, and God's going to get you. Your calling is going to work its way out. The things that God has for you next, just be faithful now where you are. God will get you where you need to go. You're going to learn things. I've learned more stuff when I was frustrated than I learned when everything was going good, because I had learned how to trust God. I learned how to work through the hard thing. I built some muscles that you only build muscles when there's a struggle. And so that struggle is going to produce some strength in you. So hang in there. I know I was there many times, and he was my dad, and I had to process through all that with him, but it made me better in the season that I was in and ready for the next assignment God had for me.
There you go. Beautiful, beautiful. Well said. Dave, you get the last word today. This is leading second. So you get the final word. Would you just, maybe talk about a prayer or exhortation you have for a second chair leader right now, just someone who's faithfully serving from your seat to theirs. What would you say to their heart today?
Yeah, I'm just gonna speak from what I think Holy Spirit's been speaking to me over the last couple of weeks. Just thinking a lot about Peter's words in 1 Peter chapter 5, where he just says, "Hey, all of you, clothe yourself with humility. Be subject to your elders. There's this idea of submission there. He talks about God opposing the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. So humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God. At the proper time, he's going to lift you up. And without a doubt, there's probably some second chair leaders that are first chair leaders in the making. But before you're ever lifted up and before you ever go into that place, not to say that first chair's more significant or greater impact, it's different. It's a different weight. It's a different thing you carry. But man, humility looks good on everybody. So choose the way of humility, choose the way of submission, stay away from this idea of entitlement and just allow God in the proper time to exalt you. And that exalting, I don't know that necessarily it's a promise or maybe just really a definition of what God's going to do in the proper time. And so I'd encourage everybody. Let's dress in humility. Let's serve our first chair leaders, lifting their load.
Beautiful. Well said. We'll leave it there today. I honor you both. Thank you so much for giving us a clear pattern to follow today. We thank you for it. Honor you for it. Well, hey, Leading Second, that's it. That's a wrap on the first half of season 6. I'm so thankful to everyone who's been with us the past few months. It's the year of the leader. And during our summer break, go back and binge all the episodes you can take in. We have some great conversations that we've had this spring. We're going to be back with a special 4-part summer series on some cultural hot topic items you're not going to want to miss. And then right back this fall, we're back with the rest of season 6 on the Leading Second podcast. So Leading Second, until then, we love you. We're running alongside you. Until we talk again, let's run strong for the kingdom and lead in an uncommon way together.
To find the episode guide, visit our website, leadingsecond.com/podcast. You can also follow us on Instagram @Leading Second and join us on the Leading Second Collective on Facebook.